Hello and welcome. My name is Hemkor Saroya. Now, air travel, it's proving to be a nightmare in Europe. Revenge travel plans for the summer have been jeopardized by frequent cancellations and delays. The aviation industry is struggling to overcome staff shortages. What led to this summer of chaos? And what is it going to cost the industry? We bring you the full context on Europe's aviation nightmare. Let's start. Now we begin this edition of the Full Context with London. Now, less than a decade ago, London's Heathrow Airport was the undisputed king of airports in Europe. The airport, it was associated with aspiration and growth. In 2022, things couldn't be more different. Today, the airport is locked in a dispute with airlines. Heathrow has told airlines to hold ticket sales, a controversial order and a move that could see at least $500 million lost in revenue. This decision was made because Heathrow has been struggling to manage a post-pandemic rush. Some are calling it revenge travel. After 2 years of being cooped inside, people are eager to get out and explore. But the airlines, they were definitely not prepared, nor were the airports. Hence, long queues of frustrated flyers have become a common sight at airports. Heathrow's relationship with carriers was already strained after it tried to increase the fee by as much as 95% compared to the pre-COVID levels in order to compensate for the hit from the pandemic. Just a few months ago, airlines, airports appeared to set for a bumper summer. UK airports saw passenger numbers jump by almost 35% every month from the start of the year through April. But warning signs had started blaring as early as March when British Airways hinted at the trouble ahead, telling staff in a memo late that it intended to trim capacity through the end of May after it struggled to hire new staff. The Airways had an 8-week security vetting process that made it rather difficult to join the front line for the spring timetable ramp-up. The situation worsened at the airports. Passengers began arriving up to 8 hours early to be sure of boarding, while a shortage of baggage handlers left luggage languishing long after planes had touched down. Many went home and returned for their possessions the following day. Heathrow is of course not alone. Amsterdam's Schiphol and Frankfurt are also among a number of airports limiting capacity. Meanwhile, it is the travellers in Europe who are paying the price, not only for the plane ticket, which is more expensive than ever, but also the chaotic nature of this entire experience. There is no guarantee their flight will be cancelled or not, or their luggage will arrive on time. Europe had more than double the cancellations of US carriers between April and June. This according to data from flight tracking company radarbox.com. Cancelled flights in June, the start of Europe's peak summer season, totaled 7,870 for departures from Germany, the UK, France, Italy and Spain. This is triple the number when compared to the same period in 2019. Meanwhile, more cancellations are expected. Airlines all over the world, they have cancelled more than 25,000 flights from their flight schedules for the coming month, with around 60% of them in Europe. Up until now, over 15,000 flights that were scheduled to fly in August have been cancelled in Europe.
The last thing any airline wants to do is cancel a flight or have a delayed flight. They have an economic motive to sell the ticket and to service that flight. So if they're canceling the flight, it's going to be for a good reason. It's because they can't accommodate it. They either can't get the right pilots, can't get the staffing to serve it, and you don't want to go on a flight and then end up stranded somewhere with a delayed flight, missing your connection, particularly on one-stop flights, not non-stop flights. So it's a bad problem throughout the system today. It's a global problem in the system today, but it's one that's going to be solvable as this demand evens out and supply evens out.
Now, if we were to retrace the steps here, all of this began with the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the International Civil Aviation Organization, in 2020, the global aviation industry lost around $372 billion in revenue, while in 2021, it was $324 billion. As demand fell, the planes were grounded, airlines laid off a lot of their staff, so did the airports. But now, with demand back with a vengeance, the sector is struggling to recruit people. The staffing shortfall alone would have been enough to throw the recovery off course. But the upheaval has taken on a new dimension as the spiraling cost of living unleashes an outbreak of strikes across the sector. Travel firms are also desperate to cash in on their first uninterrupted summer.
Happening with the air travel in Europe is that it's come back, and that in a way is a very good thing. After the pandemic, people want to travel again, and airlines are seeing a huge surge in demand. However, this surge in demand has created some problems. Airlines have gone through a very difficult time over the past 2 years, have had to furlough people, lay off people. And with demand coming back now very quickly, and perhaps a bit quicker than we all expected, they find themselves short of staff.
But unions, they're seeking to capitalize pressing demands for pay rises, better working conditions and improved benefits. They're aware that the window for doing so may be short should escalating costs push the world further into an economic slump. Now, US airplane maker Boeing, meanwhile, trimmed its projected industry-wide demand for airplanes over the next 20 years, but said that it expects the deliveries to be stable, excluding the Russian market. And WION's business editor, Sumit Chaturvedi, joins us to provide more insight into the same. Now, Sumit, thank you so much for joining us. What is your assessment of this?
Well, hey, such kind of projections are a part and parcel of this industry. Boeing has come out with projections. They have brought down the overall number of expected airplanes which will be sold over a period of 20 years. So let's begin by seeing what kind of projections have been given by US plane maker Boeing. Well, it's one of the largest plane maker. Well, talking about Boeing, and there are 41,170 new planes which will be sold over the next 2 decades. Well, this projection keep on changing. This time it has been brought down from 43,600 to 41,170 now. One of the reasons is definitely a global recession fears which are coming. However, Boeing has clarified that whatever happens over the next 2 years, the demand will be back to pre-pandemic levels. We all have seen what kind of demand evaporation happened during COVID time, and that's what has led to this kind of green projection. Forecasts have been brought down from 43,610 aircraft over a period of 20 years. It has been brought down, and one of the reasons is definitely Russia, because Russian market is clearly not clear what kind of planes will be sold there over the next 20 years. 50% of deliveries will be for replacement aircraft. Younger the aircraft, better it is. So there's a lot of demand for replacement aircraft because of security issues. That will lead to 50% of the market. Also, 75% of the planes will be single aisle type. It clearly says that overall demand is going to come to short haul routes, because single aisle plane are going to be useful for short haul routes, and there where the maximum demand is going to be coming. New estimate excludes Russian market, as we told you, because Russia, nothing is clear what kind of aviation market and demand will be there. That's why this projection excludes Russian markets. Overall, 19,575 planes will be delivered over the next 10 years. It clearly shows that in the short period, demand will come down, but in the long term, it will recover. That's why so many planes will be sold. Now, traffic forecast is going to be brought down to 3.8%. It is just a 0.2% reduction in traffic forecast. Traffic will come down for some time because of global recession fears that is plaguing world economies, and clearly aviation is no exception here. Cargo growth, well, the biggest segment is cargo now. Well, it is currently 1%, but look at the airlines in India and across the globe. The main overall growth is coming from cargo. Well, we have all seen growth of e-commerce. Well, e-commerce takes a lot of package which have to be moved from one place to another. That is the result of this growth in cargo. Fleet growth will be down to 2.8% to 3.1%. A bit of grim projection here as well, because recession fears are hovering around the global economies, and it is clearly not insulated from the recession fears. So freighter fleet will go up by 80%, as we told you. Freighter fleet, which means cargo, will grow exponentially because of explosion in e-commerce, explosion in other kinds of deliveries. So basically more and more companies will use plane for ferrying goods from one place to another. That will lead to growth of 80%. So that's how the demand from plane makers' side is there. That's what we have explained to you. Back to you, Him.
Right, absolutely. Now we have to talk about this. What can you tell us about the impact of the jet fuel price increases on airlines and, of course, airfares?
Well, clearly it's the biggest component of cost of an airline. ATF, aviation turbine fuel, is 40% of cost of an airline. It's a direct derivative of crude oil. That's why its prices are also going up. So it's a double whammy for airlines, because one side, dollar is becoming stronger. So in case of many airlines like in India, weakening rupee means more and more expenses for the airlines. Second, the biggest dent is coming from high crude prices or high ATF prices. It is up 120% from the last 1 year alone. That's a big dent on their profit and margins. Well, clearly that is one reason why airlines have not been able to invest in their services or maybe handling services, because the dent on the margins is high from the last 2 to 3 years, and the projections have gone haywire. That's why they have not been able to invest much into staffing of airports, staffing at we can say that the baggage handling. That's what has led to a lot of chaos we have been talking about in the last few minutes. Back to you, Him.
Well, Sumit, thank you so much for bringing us all those figures in your analysis of the situation. Thank you. Now, of course, given the circumstances, air travel in Europe, it's proving to be a nightmare, being stuck, missing connecting flights, and in some cases, not even being able to track your luggage. Amid the chaos, the European Union Commission is now trying to make the EU passengers aware of their rights in such situations. Europe's aviation sector may not have been prepared, but you can be. And if you are someone whose plans have been derailed, this is what you need to know. As per EU rules, if your flight has been cancelled, the airline must provide either a refund or must reschedule the flight, even if it means using a different carrier altogether. The passengers can choose for themselves as well. You could choose to get a refund, to be rerouted, or for reimbursements. Of course, that depends on your plans and what suits you. However, there is a caveat here. When it comes to compensation or reimbursements, if the airline can prove that the cancellation was a result of extraordinary circumstances and could not have been avoided, well, in that case, compensation, it's not due. Though the burden of evidence, of course, lies on the airlines. Now, say your flight is delayed and and passengers, in that case, they have the right to airport assistance, reimbursement, returned flight as well. All of these would again depend on the duration of your flight, and if you reach your destination with a delay of over 3 hours, once again, you are entitled to compensation. That can range anywhere between $297 to $700. In case of your flight being overbooked or a passenger being denied boarding, you still enjoy certain travel rights, including the ones I just mentioned. And of course, in case of a lost, delayed luggage, you can demand compensation. All of these rules apply in the following cases. That is, if a flight is within the EU and is operated by an EU or non-EU airline. And if a flight arrives in the EU from a third country and is operated by an EU airline. Also in the case of flight departure from EU to a non-EU country and is operated by an EU or non-EU airline. Another instance here is if passengers have not already received benefits for flights-related problems for the journey under the relevant law of non-EU country. In case of staff strikes, this would be considered an extraordinary circumstance, which of course explains all the chaos and the frustration. Either way, in such circumstances, it becomes even more imperative to know your rights.
The cheeky is slower. We apologize for this inconvenience.